I've actually had a couple of coaching sessions from a spiritual teacher recently, who was very good. And he asked me some very interesting questions that helped me to uh, let go of some ideas and beliefs I had. And I'm wondering what kinds of questions you ask people who you're coaching and trying to help them pass stuck places.
Well, I guess first it would be dependent on what the person is asking for.
Hmm.
Are they asking to change their beliefs on something? Um, the way I've ended up being positioned with non-duality being at the forefront at the moment, most of the beliefs, persistent limiting beliefs that people were requesting assistance on dispelling are to do with the nature of the separate self and the ego and the personhood, and seeing through those particular beliefs or apparent limitations. And the way that I converse with people, it can only be effective if I am having a discussion or asking questions that points out or creates a pointing out of what is true in their experience, in our reality. Because if someone wants to transcend a belief, I can't just try to give them a new belief
Hmm.
or try some trick in order to change that belief into something else. All limiting beliefs dissolve in the face of the truth, and the truth has to be seen and experienced for oneself, or seen maybe is more accurately, because that's when the limiting beliefs fall away. So I will simply point out or ask questions around whether things are true in that person's experience. So, for example, if someone thinks that they may be able to be harmed by their emotional state or their thoughts, we could do an investigation on that, and I could ask the question. There may be a bit more of a setup to this, by the way, rather than just this one question out of the blue. However, something like, well, what is these emotional states made out of in our experience? Can we confirm that it's made out of bodily sensations or just sensation or thoughts? Would you agree that you are aware and that you actually are this awareness, this consciousness? Has any sensation or any thought harmed or disturbed you, awareness, you, consciousness? And if the person is to say no, I would want to verify, and I usually can by intuition, that that is coming from their direct reality and experience, not what a book said, not what's a YouTube channel or a spiritual teacher said, but what is actually verifiable and true in one's experience, because that is the only sustainable way to dispel a belief.
Hmm. Yeah, I like that. When I was working with this one coach, I would sometimes he would ask a question. I'd say, "Well, that feels like resistance," and I liked how he would respond. He says, "Well, what is resistance?" Any label I used, we would basically dissect it until it was basically sensations, energy, and frequency, and God knows what. It just turned into nothing.
Were those most of the questions that he asked? Was you know, asking what anything that you put a label on, asking what it really was, or what other kind of questions was he
Well,
asking?
that was the a lot of it, and I found that very helpful. As Alex said, it when you let go of labels and you go into the direct experience, uh, your labels become meaningless, and you realize you're just present with what's happening, which is a totally different way of living than in the concepts and labels and beliefs that we normally walk around with.
Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah. I think it's like the mental interpretations and the story, although relevant, is secondary or tertiary, and it's usually where we're focusing on most of our attention. And these kinds of questions that break through those interpretations to our raw, direct experience of reality usually have the experience or feeling processed more effectively, because even biologically, we are in a way accessing deeper parts of the brain, because most, I would suggest that most of our troublesome experiences come from particular uncomfortable feeling states. And although there's a lot about how the story creates the suffering, and an identification with that creates the suffering, and there's the recognition of that. If, for example, one is traumatized, whether regardless of whether or not you have a story going, you have a perpetual background discomfort and pain in the body. That's an extreme example of unprocessed emotions, but we all have, possibly more, most of us may have a background degree of unease. Now, if we're only dealing with our interpretations on a biological level, we're only dealing with the prefrontal cortex, where the thinking reside, or whether there is a correspondence with the thinking, whereas actually the way we feel has more of a correspondence with the limbic system and the nervous system, and that is accessed through the feeling sense, the interoceptive sense. So when we pierce through the story and get to our direct experience, either of energy or sensation or whatever we want to call it, actually we're enabling a lot of deep processing to go on, and a lot of experiences to move forward in time and to flow through this awareness, and is also now becoming the whole basis for healing modalities like somatic experiencing, EMDR, brain spotting. All these modalities are recognizing there is limitations in just working on the cognitive level, and that actually there's a healing that is facilitated through creating a space for the body and mind system to natural healing ability to work its magic by withdrawing our attention from just the cognitive landscape and trying to negotiate with all the thoughts and fix it from that level, come into a recognition of ourselves as aware spaciousness, our feeling state, and allowing things to process.
Mm-hmm.
Wonderful.
Go on, Brian.
That's actually explains a lot, and in a way, that's a very optimistic way of looking. I mean, optimistic in the best sense.